everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Gabe Saglie Show. I am your host, Gabe Saglie, and it's a Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. The Memorial Day weekend, the unofficial start of the summer season. But what does that even mean in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic? Well, would you believe that there are some hotels here in the States that for this weekend are at an 80% capacity or more? Yeah, we're going to check in with one of those properties here in just a few moments. But first off, I want to remind you about our website, GabeSaglie.com. Anything you see on our show and so much more about travel, wine, food, etc. is on our website, which we update on a regular basis. You want to check that out. Also, here's what I'm drinking during today's show. My wine pick for today. This is Almarosa's 2017 Santa Rita Hills Pinot Noir. Santa Rita Hills, a world-class Pinot growing region just about 90 miles north of Los Angeles. If you want to dive into some fantastic Pinots, you want to check out their website, almarosawinery.com. But right now, let's dive right into the hotel scene. What's going on here in the States and globally? My guest today, Ewan McGlashan. He is his founder and CEO of Valor Hospitality Partners. They run and operate and rebrand hotels all over the States, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. He's got some fantastic insight. Ewan, great to see you. Welcome to the Gabe Saglie Show.
Hey, Gabe. Good to be with you. How are you today?
Well, you know, what's keeping an eye on what's happening in the hotel sector here in the U.S. and around the globe. So I'm happy to have you on today. Tell me first off about Valor Hospitality Partners. Here's a company that you started in 2012. You've seen a lot of changes, certainly in the last 8 years, in the last couple of months alone, I'm assuming.
Yeah, listen, I actually started it in 2010 through the downturn. So the business was actually born in a crisis, and it was 2012 that I partnered with Steve Sessinger, and then just after that, Brandon Hatfield to form Valor Hospitality. So listen, it's a long story, but the bottom line is we're a third-party management company, although we're a full-service one. So we do everything to help our clients, debt and equity raise through due diligence, underwriting. We project manage, we reposition hotels, we rebrand them. So we're truly full service. We do independent luxury and game reserves in Africa all the way through the branded hotels. We have great relationships with IHG and Hilton and Marriott. So it's an interesting story, but if anybody that's listening is interested, valorhospitality.com. That's way better than me wasting all the time telling you about it.
No, that's fantastic. And it's fascinating because you've got this global take on what's happened in just the last couple of months. I want to talk to you a little bit about the American hotel sector. You're joining us today from a property there in Gulf Shores, Alabama, right along the Alabama-Florida border, a part of the U.S. that really sort of has moved forward from this shutdown during the pandemic a little bit earlier than other parts of the country. You've got great bookings for Memorial Day weekend already in the books. You're at what, 75, 80% there?
Yeah, we'll do 80% occupancy. There'll be about 950 people in house this weekend.
That's amazing. So clearly there is appetite for getting back to staying in hotels.
You know, it's interesting. Here in the U.S., all the hotels are back and open. We're running, sadly, some of them in single-digit occupancies. And then 2 or 3 others, notably this one, are up in that, been trading between that 60, 70, 80%, which clearly tells you that leisure travel is definitely the first to come back. Yeah. And if you've got beach or lake locations, then you're going to see a lot of people getting out. UK, all our hotels are currently mandated to stay closed until July 4th. And then in South Africa, it's a shocking situation down there because it's almost been a military shutdown there. Asia, we really work in Southeast Asia, so Thailand is still very slow to come back, and Dubai's still in a lockdown. So we're in a really fortunate situation here. But you know what's interesting as well is watching the guest behavior. I think for the first 2, 4, 6 weeks of this, we all understood it was a pandemic. We needed to be in quarantine. But as people have come out of this, there is definitely, you see the human side of human beings because they actually don't want to be socially distanced. They want to be together and interdependent and interacting. And so we've had to do, obviously there's a lot of legislation and brand mandates out there for social distancing and protocols, which we're trying to really work around. But what we're doing down here, and it's been great. I've been very proud of the team. The way that we've worked around the legislation, we've done it in a very thoughtful and purposeful way. Instead of looking like it's reactionary. You know, I mean, in so many hotels that, you know, there's duct tape all over the floors with X's. Walk here. And we've you know, down here, obviously it's the Gulf State Park, which is 6,500 acres. It's based around ecotourism and sustainability, and the sea life and the wildlife down here is incredible. So, you know, to mark walkways, we got turtles that are on the ground that show you where to stand or line up. So we've worked around it, but definitely you see this desperate need for people to get back out and socialize again, which look, I think it's welcoming, but it still has to be safety first. You know, I've been here for about a week now, and we've been running about 65-70% occupancy while I've been here. I've seen maybe 4 of the guests with face masks. Now we're doing our part. We obviously, in the restaurants, food and beverage spaces, we've spaced out the tables. You know, at check-in, there's a line formed. You know, when you're in line to get some food from an outside bar or restaurant, we've created the spacing. But and, you know, obviously from a health and safety, from a cleaning protocol, that's become the big. You've probably seen this and read it. That's become the biggest really directive from the brands, and it's correct, is the wiping of hard surfaces. Then, you know, some of the brands have got together with Lysol or Dettol and created these partnerships, Ecolab. You know, so we have many protocols that we follow, and then in the rooms, you know, there's, you know, once the bathroom's been cleaned, we got, you know, a breakable seal around the toilet. There's hand wipes for the wiping the surfaces, and then, you know, our staff, you know, I feel horrible for them, but they wear obviously the face mask when they're inside. Yeah. Outside, no real need for masks. And maybe this isn't the same as places like New York or Washington, for instance, but there's definitely a sense that guests are out to have fun, and they're desperate to just shed this anxiety and depression that I think they've all been feeling and get back to normal.
Some of these protocols you're mentioning, if we look forward, say 5 years, 10 years from now, I mean, many of these sort of short-lived protocols meant to sort of help incentivize a return to travel habits. Do you see some of these becoming more long-term practices by hotels in the U.S.?
I refuse to talk about new normal, because this staying, you know, 6 feet apart and not socially distancing and staff walking about wearing masks. That's not a new normal. That's a short-term solution to make sure we get through this peak, whatever that peak is, and come out the other side. But I think human beings have short memories. I mean, you look at the financial crash of 2008, but then look at how we were living in the banking and investment banking sector in 18 and 19. You know, we were suddenly back on as high rollers again. So look, it's important that we keep the cleaning protocols, and I think we'll do the smart things, but there is no new normal. This will not be around forever, certainly in my opinion. Nor would I want it to be honest.
I would imagine that in the U.S., the vast majority of travelers right out of the gate are going to be regional travelers, folks who maybe are traveling, maybe driving a couple of hours from certain destinations. Slowly, domestic travel will pick up, and international travel will certainly follow, though we're still seeing signs that people are a little reticent about traveling internationally, both from a health standpoint, but also the fact that this is not a linear reality, the way that the countries are reopening. Different countries have different mandates in place, and it's to navigate that scene is a whole different thing.
First of all, I think that everything will eventually open back up, and we'll be back on planes. I don't think you can keep us from traveling. Yeah. I think it's certainly in our trade. That's what we want. You and I are big travelers, and we're certainly going to be back on planes. Airlines are also being super proactive, and they're adding routes. Which, if they're adding routes, that's important. That tells you something, that they're seeing a pattern that people want to get back out there and travel. And I think it really brings it back to what we've been talking about today, that societies, communities, travelers, they're going to be out there. They're going to come back, and these international destinations need us because they need those tourism dollars. So I'm taking a very, very positive view on this.
If you look at Asia, if you look at Europe or Africa, are we seeing some similarities in the way that the human being is trying to kind of get back to I guess whatever that normal is, or really are we seeing very distinct returns to normalcy, and depending on where we are on the planet?
I think we're really fortunate that we're in the US, to be honest, because we really have bounced back a lot quicker. As I say, the UK, they're talking about July 4th. South Africa, they're probably talking about the same.
Yeah.
very different in how they're handling it, because the UK has a lot of government stimulus and support to help. South Africa, there's nothing. South Africa, it relies heavily on tourism. It's a big economic driver, and I don't agree with how it's being handled down there. I think it's shocking. They've gone from this acceptance and tolerance to now kind of irritated almost in South Africa to angry, because there's people going out of business, friends of mine that are losing their restaurants or hotels. And there is a point where I think we've hit it now, where there's this anger and this groundswell of everybody saying, no, enough's enough. It isn't apocalyptic. It's not like something out of The Walking Dead. We're going to take our chances. We want to get out there. We'll be careful. We'll socially distance. We'll do our bit. But this is a free country, and we need to get back out there and earn a living. So it's been interesting to watch. It's a great industry to be in, and our industry has never seen anything like this. It's unprecedented. I mean, 2008 through 10 was horrific. You X that by 10, and that's what we're feeling right now. I never want to see this again.
I think it's optimistic to hear what you're saying about that human spirit that is probably, as we move forward over the next several months, be a boon to the hotel industry worldwide, because it is going to be that traveler who is going to just insist on embracing so many of these experiences all over again, as safely as possible, but as quickly as possible at the same time. Fascinating industry and cultural insights with you, Ewan. So it's a pleasure having you on the show, and we'll send people to the Valor Hospitality Partners website. Check out some of the great stuff you're doing all over the world.
Thank you so much. Great talking to you, Gabe.
All right. And as promised, that website, valorhospitality.com. Before we say goodbye, a quick tip of the hat to my son, Gabriel. He's really been using this extra time at home during the shelter-in-place mandate here in California really effectively. Watching YouTube videos, learning how to ride a skateboard, learning new tricks. I'm proud of him. I thought I'd show him off for just a little bit. Cheers to him. And anybody out there who's actually using this extra time to learn a brand new skill. This pandemic changing the world and changing the way we do things on a daily basis. We are staying on top of it. We appreciate you watching the show. We'll have more for you on the next episode of The Gabe Saglie Show. Until then, stay safe, stay well. Cheers.